Congressman Earl Blumenauer is giving a talk at the Portland City Club today about the impact of agricultural subsidies. Basically, U.S. agricultural subsidies allow for the dumping of agricultural products on poor countries, developing nations, so that farmers in poor countries are faced to compete directly with U.S. crops that are actually sold at less than what it costs to grow them because they receive taxpayer subsidies. And so Congressman Blumenauer is here today to talk about why that's a problem, yet he's planning this coming Tuesday to vote in the House Ways and Means Committee to support the Peru Free Trade Agreement, which would force Peru to remove all its protections for small farmers and would flood that country with dumped agricultural staples from U.S. agribusiness. And 4 million Peruvian farmers went on strike to oppose this deal earlier this summer. The congressman knows that this is going to have a devastating impact on farmers. Oxfam America, all hosts of human rights groups have been in to speak with him about it, and he's still supporting this Bush trade deal that will expand NAFTA to Peru and devastate farming communities there. He sits on not only the House Ways and Means Committee, but the Trade Subcommittee. So he has a special responsibility and special access to how these trade deals are put about. And unfortunately, he's sided with the Bush administration on allowing this to move forward.
But from what you're saying, what it sounds like could happen in Peru, it's already happened in Mexico. Is this a pretty similar situation?
That's right. Between 1.2 million and 3 million Mexican farm workers were pushed off their land because of NAFTA, forced into either urban poverty or the immigration flow or other, hard situations. Is devastating to agricultural communities in Mexico. And now we're expanding Mexico to Peru and to other countries. It's going to have the same exact impacts. We all know that this is a problem, and yet we have Democratic congressmen from Portland supporting a Bush trade deal that'll do the same exact thing. It's outrageous.
What relationship does this bill or whatever that this is have to the defunct FFTA that was failed to pass?
Well, when Bush got into office, he had a plan to expand NAFTA to the entire Western Hemisphere, except for Cuba. Activism in the United States and around the hemisphere stopped that from moving forward. And so now the free traders have been forced to go one country at a time. They're having a tough go of it, but with the help of Democrats, the Republicans have been able to move this agenda forward. And unfortunately, Earl Blumenauer is one of the congressmen who's supporting this.
Have they managed to get any other countries, or is Peru the first?
Well, Peru is the first, but we're expecting a vote soon after on Panama, on Colombia, maybe even South Korea. So they have very ambitious plans to expand NAFTA throughout South America and into Asia.
Well, so what do the Peruvians have to say about this?
Well, Peruvians have been fighting this tooth and nail. As I said, 4 million Peruvian farm workers went out on strike to oppose this trade deal this summer. All of Peru's major trade unions have written to our Congress and urged them to oppose this. They know that this deal is a sham. Unfortunately, our elected officials don't even care about their own constituents. They're not going to care about what Peruvians want.
So what you're saying is the Peruvians don't want it, but their government does.
Exactly. I mean, there's certain elements of the government in Peru and certain moneyed interests in Peru that will benefit from this, but the vast majority of Peruvians, just like the vast majority of Americans, will not benefit from this whatsoever. In fact, they'll be very, very seriously harmed.
Why do you find this important?
Well, I think that I find free trade important in general just because of the general devastation that it causes in societies. I see it affecting American workers, I see it affecting farmers in other countries, and I think it really is upsetting that we allow corporations to control every aspect of life through these trade agreements that they produce, our government produces on behalf of corporate interests. And so I think that that's the most disturbing element for me when it comes to natural resources like water and everything else, really, food and water being the biggest ones that we allow companies to control, and we take power away from the people who actually need and produce those elements and give it away to corporate interests. So that's one reason why I'm out here today. I mean, I think especially with Peru, while it won't necessarily affect the American worker as much as like NAFTA has in the past, I think that as workers in America, we have a responsibility to stand in solidarity with workers in other countries who are fighting against these free trade agreements. And when 4 million Peruvian farmers go on strike against this, I think we have a responsibility to show solidarity with them and recognize that this free trade agreement will devastate small farmers. So that's also why I'm here.
The U.S.-Peru free trade agreement is going to be a disaster for Peruvian farmers. It's going to dump a lot of heavily subsidized U.S. agricultural products on the Peruvian market. We're talking about lots of corn, rice, oats, and a variety of other crops. This is going to be a disaster for Peruvian farmers. It's going to drive tens of thousands of Peruvian farmers off their land. And given that Mr. Blumenauer has been such a major supporter of free trade agreements. Oh, that was him, right? Oh, man. It's going to drive tens of thousands of Peruvian farmers off their land. And this has been really inconsistent with what Representative Blumenauer has stated are his principles on just, equitable, and sustainable agricultural policy. If he's saying that he supports a just policy and an end to these ridiculous agricultural subsidies, then he should be voting no on the U.S.-Peru free trade agreement.
So is the vote that this is going to be, is that just putting American farmers in front of Peruvian farmers, or will they suffer as well?
Well, they're not really American farmers. American farmers are already totally marginalized in the current system. This is about letting huge U.S. agribusiness companies dump their products on Peru. U.S. farmers are not going to benefit at all. They're just going to continue to be squeezed out by the major agribusiness like they always have.
So this won't have any effect on the American farmers necessarily, though?
No, I mean, their bad situation won't change until the U.S. gets rid of its subsidies for the big agriculture companies.